Melissa stood near the entrance of the local coffee shop, the smell of freshly brewed coffee wrapping around her like a warm blanket. She watched the morning hustle as people rushed in and out, some clutching their steaming cups, others lost in their phones. It was just another Tuesday for her until a man walked in, catching her attention right away. He had a certain presence about him, the way he moved. There was something oddly familiar in the way he looked, like a hazy dream she couldn't quite place. As he approached the counter, she found herself staring at him. His dark hair curled slightly at his forehead and he ran a hand through it, glancing over his shoulder. That's when it hit her, the intensity of the moment wrapping around her heart. She shook her head slightly, trying to dismiss the feeling. It was silly to feel this way about a stranger. Still, those deep-set eyes of his held a story that called out to her. She took a sip of her coffee, forcing herself to look away. But when she turned back, he was looking straight at her. His gaze locked onto hers, and in that instant, time felt like it stopped for both of them. He flashed a friendly smile, and she couldn't help but smile back. Melissa noticed the small tattoo peeking from under the sleeve of his shirt. It was a minimal design, something like a compass. It pulled at some invisible thread tied to her past, but she couldn't quite grasp why. As he walked towards a table in the corner, something within her nudged her to follow him. Curiosity ate at her, urging her to request a seat. Maybe it was just the coffee shop atmosphere or the way the sun streamed through the windows, highlighting everything in soft gold. She couldn't shake off the feeling that she had to know more about him. Gathering her courage, she moved to the table next to his. A little closer wouldn't hurt, she thought. He was scrolling through his phone and she waited, tapping her fingers nervously against her cup. Suddenly he looked up again, eyebrows raised. "Hey," he said, his voice deep and warm like the coffee. His words sent a shiver down her spine. I get that a lot," she replied, chuckling softly. He nodded, still studying her as if trying to solve a puzzle. He paused, searching for a connection. "Melissa," she said, extending her hand. He took it gently and their hands lingered just a second longer than necessary. "Nice to meet you, Melissa," he said, his gaze searching hers. "We grew up here, actually. Just moved back a few months ago," she said, trying to keep her voice steady despite the nerves swirling inside her. "Just moved back too, actually," he replied, sounding a bit surprised. She felt the rush of excitement swell within her. It was as if fate was weaving their paths together. They began to chat about anything and everything. His laughter filled the space around them, making her feel lighter. A small smile never left her face, but in the back of her mind, she couldn't dismiss that nagging thought, why did he look so familiar? As the conversation flowed, she noticed how he spoke passionately about his work in graphic design, but often glanced at her intently, as if he was trying to pry open a door she had sealed shut. After a while, he leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. He asked, his gaze never leaving her. "Not really," Melissa replied, her heart skipping a beat. "Just my mother, she's in a nursing home nearby." He hesitated, like a shadow passing over his expression. "I've just been searching for family lately." Something inside her stirred, the way he said it, the longing in his voice, it echoed deep in her heart. "I understand." "Yeah," he said, his smile fading a little. "I've always felt a little lost." Just then, the door to the coffee shop swung open and a mother rushed in with her two kids. The sounds of laughter and playful banter surrounded them. It felt so normal, so routine, but Melissa couldn't shake the mood. Taking a deep breath, she didn't want to linger on heaviness. "So if you're looking for family, maybe we could look together. I mean, if you're comfortable with that," she said, surprising herself with her boldness. Nick raised an eyebrow, something flickering behind his eyes. "That would be interesting." The connection between them felt electric, but Melissa felt a different kind of tension tugging at the edges of her thoughts. Could he be related to her? Nick's voice pulled her back from the spiraling thoughts. "I am, but it's complicated," she said, her voice quieter now. She paused as emotions threatened to spill over. He nodded, absorbing her words. At that, she didn't know how to reply. He understood, truly understood. "I think family can be a thread that connects us," he said, breaking the silence. That left her pondering, staring into her cup, suddenly lost in the swirling design of the foam. Something about that thought hit differently. It was like the space between them grew smaller, filled with unspoken questions, threading into a common fate. Suddenly her phone buzzed on the table, shattering the moment. She picked it up, glancing at the screen. It was a text from her mother asking when she could visit. Nick asked, noticing her expression change. With a heavy heart, she said, "Yeah, it's just my mom." "Family first," he said, his voice warm and understanding. "But what if?" She asked, a bit thrown off. "Your last name, I'm just curious," he said, a spark igniting in his eyes. She hesitated, then let out a small laugh. His eyes widened for a brief moment, then narrowed, deep in thought. He whispered. Melissa felt the world tilt slightly, strained. "Well, that's my mother's maiden name." The words hung between them like a thunderclap. She felt a rush of heat across her cheeks, her heart racing. Was this a coincidence? Was it possible? Wait. She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I mean, it could be nothing, but my family was pretty small. I never met a lot of my relatives," he replied, his eyes searching hers for clarity. Melissa leaned back in her chair, the weight of the moment crashing down. "I don't know, it seems wild," he admitted, his expression a mix of excitement and disbelief. she echoed, her heart pounding. A rush of questions filled her mind. Could they really share blood? Was there a history that connected them? As she contemplated everything, a flicker of hope ignited within her. Maybe it's got me curious, she said, her voice steadying. Me too, he said, leaning forward again, the weight of the moment pressing down on them both. Maybe we should find out, she suggested. With widened eyes, Nick nodded slowly. Yeah, they exchanged numbers, their hearts racing at the prospect of uncovering something far bigger than themselves. I'll reach out to some relatives, he said, a light glimmering in his gaze. Unbelievable, she echoed, still trying to wrap her head around it. As she stood to leave, something told her this was just the beginning. The universe seemed to have conspired to bring them together. No longer strangers, they were connected by strings of fate, family, and something deep that neither of them yet fully understood. Goodbye, Melissa, he said, a smile touching his lips. Goodbye, Nick, she replied, her heart a little lighter. And with that, she stepped out into the bright morning air, carrying a blend of excitement and uncertainty, her mind racing with possibilities. As the door swung shut behind her, the world felt different. The hum of the coffee shop faded away, but the connection they had forged lingered like a warm glow. Somewhere within her, she felt an echo of hope. For once, the pieces seemed to be falling into place. The mystery awaited them, and she couldn't help but smile at the adventure that lay ahead. Sarah whispered, glancing nervously at the man across the crowded coffee shop. Her heart raced, not just from her double shot of espresso, but from the unsettling feeling that washed over her. Had just entered, pushing the door open with purpose, and for a split second their eyes met. A spark ignited, a recognition that sent electricity tingling through her veins. But why, she couldn't place him, yet something about his face tugged at her memory like an old song just barely escaping her lips. He wore a faded denim jacket over a simple white t-shirt, giving off an effortlessly cool vibe. The kind of vibe that made her feel out of place in her smart work attire, but there was more. As she squinted through the dim light and steam rising from her cup, she noticed a small tattoo peeking out from his cuff, a compass perhaps. Her friend Karen nudged her, breaking her train of thought. Just that guy, she stammered, still watching him. He was laughing with the barista, an easy smile accentuating his strong jawline. I think he looked at you, Karen teased, raising her eyebrows suggestively. Stop it, Sarah said, rolling her eyes, but the heat creeping up her neck betrayed her calm facade. What was it about him that felt so familiar? The man turned then, scanning the room until his gaze landed firmly back on her. It was as if he could sense her curiosity. She darted her eyes away, pretending to focus on the muffin display. Why was she even worried? He was just another stranger in a coffee shop, that's all. But still, that undeniable pull remained. Then, as if the universe had choreographed this moment, he began to approach her table. Her heart thumped loudly in her chest, a chaotic drumbeat echoing in her thoughts. Okay, breathe, she told herself. He asked, his voice smooth and inviting. Yeah, sure, she replied, her bravado faltering. He settled into the chair across from her, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes. I'm Jake, he said, extending his hand. Sarah, she replied, shaking his hand with a firm grip. I couldn't help but notice you looking at me, he said with an easy chuckle. His playful tone disarmed her, but apprehension bubbled beneath her skin. I don't think so, she said honestly, her voice faltering. Everyone says that, he laughed, shrugging it off. Yeah, I guess so, she said, forcing a smile while analyzing every detail of his expression. As their conversation unfolded, Sarah felt a fascinating connection blooming between them. They talked about everything from favorite music to childhood memories. She learned that he had moved back to their small town just a few weeks ago, seeking a fresh start after an old life in a bustling city crumbled around him. Jake mused, glancing around. Absolutely, Sarah replied, feeling the warmth of belonging wrap around her. There was a certain magic to this ordinary coffee shop, and now it felt like it draped them in an even deeper connection. But with each shared laugh, the shadow of familiarity crept closer. The heartbeat of the city outside faded into the background as she watched him closely. What was it about his smile that felt like an echo of her past? Suddenly she felt bold. Let me ask you something, she said, looking directly into his eyes, which gleamed with intrigue. Read, he answered simply, his brow arching with curiosity. Her heart skipped a beat. That's interesting, she said, sounding more composed than she felt. He repeated, shaking his head with slight confusion as if trying to piece together a puzzle. You don't ever feel like you're a part of something bigger? Sarah hesitated. All the time, she said, truth spilling from her lips. Sometimes it feels like there's this invisible thread connecting everything. Jake looked at her intently, and the air between them charged with something unspoken. There was a depth to his expression, as if he understood her more than she had anticipated. I know exactly what you mean. His words cut through the comfort of their conversation like a knife. Family, she echoed, a mix of foreboding creeping in. I've been trying to sort through my own family tree, he asked softly, leaning forward, eyes glistening. My dad left when I was young, she said, feeling a swell of emotions bubbling up. He was always a mystery to me. That sounds difficult, Jake said, his empathy palpable. I was adopted, knowing my biological family has been a lifelong puzzle for me. The revelation rattled her, something shifted in the room, an unexpected bond. Their stories were intertwined in ways neither of them knew. "I can't believe that," she said, her voice catching. "What was it like?" Jake smiled, but it was bittersweet. It was strange, exciting, and terrifying all at once. Her heart raced at the thought, what if? What if we dug deeper? He tilted his head, considering her proposition. "I mean, it's worth a shot, right?" She felt a rush of hope as she spoke, a tiny flame igniting in a dark room. "Let's make a pact," he said decisively. "We can research our families together." "Deal," she said, grinning like a giddy child. As they shook on it, a wave of warmth surged through her. At that moment, they weren't just two strangers in a coffee shop. They were explorers embarking on a journey that could change everything. Yet just when the excitement began to take root, Jake's expression darkened. "But there's something I need to tell you," he said, taking a breath. Her breath caught. He hesitated, and she could sense a storm brewing behind his eyes. "My birth mother is from a small town not far from here." Sarah's heart raced, and she couldn't mask the growing sense of urgency. "Maybe," he said, raising his hands half-heartedly. "I don't know, but it's worth looking into." Her stomach churned. "This is surreal. I didn't see this coming at all, but I need to know." He leaned closer, his voice low and urgent. The realization blended excitement with fear. Was this really happening? Could their intertwined fates spiral to something profound? Sensing her hesitation, he reached out for her hand, gripping it firmly, almost as if to anchor her. "Whatever secrets we uncover, we are in this together," he vowed, his gaze steady. As they shared that moment, an understanding flowed between them. In a world filled with darkness and uncertainty, they had already started to ignite a flicker of hope. Swallowing hard, Sarah felt a rush of emotions flood her senses. "I want this," she said, her words spilling out. "I need this." Their pact secured, the coffee shop around them transformed. The chatter of patrons, the clinking of cups became a soundtrack to the adventure looming before them. A journey not just into their pasts, but into the intertwining fibers of their identities. When they finally left the coffee shop, the sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue around them. The street was busy, but they had forged an intimate world of their own. What lay ahead was unknown, and yet they stepped forward with firm rhythm. As the world blurred around them deep down, they knew they were on the brink of an emotional journey that would forever shape their lives. They were not just searching for family, they were uncovering the very essence of who they were meant to be. The threads of their lives twisted and turned, interwoven in a tapestry of fate, pulling them closer with every passing moment. And Sarah couldn't help but smile. Whatever chaos awaited them, they would face it together. The bell above the cafe door chimed, cutting through the steady hum of conversation. Emily glanced up from her laptop, her eyes landing on a man stepping inside. Tall, with tousled dark hair and an easy smile, he carried an air of familiarity that jolted her. She squinted, trying to place him amidst the bustle of the coffee shop. She muttered to herself, leaning back in her chair. The man moved to the counter, ordering with the confidence of someone who belonged, yet something about his presence twinkled like a forgotten memory, lingering just out of reach. As he turned, their gazes connected for a brief moment. A ripple surged through her, a mix of surprise and something else: curiosity, recognition. Before she could analyze it, he shifted his attention and walked away. She shook her head, dismissing the strange feeling. It had to be a coincidence. Still, curiosity remained, gnawing at the edges of her mind. Shaking off the sensation, she returned to her work, focusing on the screen in front of her. Minutes passed. Just as she was sinking back into her tasks, the man settled into the table directly across from her. He pulled out a sketchbook, flipping it open, his pencil moving deftly across the page. Now she could see the details, the lines of his jaw, the way his brow furrowed ever so slightly in concentration. He looked up often, glancing around the cafe, his eyes landing on her again. Was it her imagination, or was there a flicker of recognition in his gaze too? She thought. She could barely make out dark strokes and shapes forming, but her heart thudded in response to his presence rather than his art. As if sensing her gaze, he suddenly looked up, his hazel eyes locking onto hers. A grin broke across his face, and her breath caught in her throat. "Hey, I'm Ryan," he said, his voice warm and inviting, cutting through the clatter of cups and chatter around them. "Emily," she replied, trying to mirror his smile, but her thoughts raced, drowning out the chatter. What was happening? He nodded as if he recognized her name. Ryan asked, leaning forward, interest lighting up his expression. "Sometimes," she said, feeling oddly shy under his attentive gaze. "Nice. It's a good spot for inspiration," he said, glancing at his sketchbook. "I'm an artist." "Wow, that's cool," she said, genuinely impressed. He inquired, tilting his head, urging her to share more about herself. Just then, she felt a strange flutter in her chest, a feeling that this man wasn't just another passerby. I don't know. "I haven't published anything big or anything," she stammered, feeling both exhilarated and uneasy. But as their conversation flowed, her initial nerves began to fade. They traded stories and laughter, sharing the stories of their lives like old friends catching up after years apart. She asked, curious about the man who seemed so familiar yet so elusive. "Born and raised here," he said, his lips quirking into a smile. "Me too, but I've been away for a while, studying abroad and things." Just moved back, she shared. His smile grew wider. Honestly, I love it. They drifted back into comfortable conversation until a sudden thought gripped her. She blurted out almost before she could stop herself. Dawson, he replied, furrowing his brow in confusion. Her heart raced again. She repeated slowly, the name stirring something deep inside her. His expression shifted, curiosity swirling in his eyes. Really? She leaned back in her chair, trying to piece together her fragmented thoughts. Why did it sound so familiar? She asked, probing deeper. I grew up with a small family, mostly just my mom and me. Dad's not in the picture much, Ryan said, his words laced with a hint of sadness. Emily felt a familiar pang in her heart, reflecting on her own complicated family ties. My dad left when I was young too, she said quietly, feeling a connection tethering them together. Wow, he breathed, a glance of understanding passing between them. They shared a moment of silence, absorbed in their own thoughts, and somehow the little cafe felt smaller, cozier, as if their vulnerabilities created an invisible bond. Just then, Emily's phone buzzed loudly, breaking the brief moment of intimacy. She looked down, swallowing hard as her stomach twisted. It was a message from her mom, asking about family details. She groaned lightly, her mind racing. My mom is always asking about family history. Ryan noticed her sudden shift and leaned back, concern shadowing his face. Yeah, just family stuff, she said, forcing a smile. So how about you? Nope, just me, Ryan replied, his eyes flickering as he drew small lines in his sketchbook. Emily laughed, the moment easing her tense thoughts. Ryan leaned closer, teasingly. Their laughter filled the room, but as the sound faded, Emily's mind snapped back to the mystery of his last name. Ryan leaned in, intrigued. She hesitated, feeling an urge to share. I've dug through family trees and records, convinced there's more family out there. Maybe that's it, Ryan said, his eyes brightening. What if we could unravel that together? Emily considered his words, feeling the thrill of possibility. Why not? There was a lightness to his tone, but Emily could see the seriousness behind it too. She spoke the thought aloud, the idea festering and growing with each breath. His expression shifted. That would be wild. She froze for a moment, the words hanging between them, then it hit her. Ryan narrowed his eyes slightly, processing her answer. Wait, his brow furrowed. You mentioned you've dug into records. I have, but it was tough to find much, she said, her heart racing anew. Then let's dig deeper, he said earnestly. See what we can discover. She felt a surge of adrenaline at the thought. Sounds like a plan, Emily said, her excitement growing. But what if we find something we weren't expecting? What if, I dunno? Ryan grinned, his eyes sparkling. The laughter that followed felt electric, a palpable energy crackling in the air. The world outside faded to uncertainty, their focus drifting only to one another, to the promises of the unknown. Yet beneath that excitement, something deeper stirred. Emily couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just curiosity. They were on the cusp of unraveling choices, secrets, and possibly her family's past. As the cafe began to empty, the barista started clattering dishes, signaling closing time. I should get going, she said reluctantly, glancing at her watch. Me too, Ryan said, a hint of disappointment lacing his voice. But let's meet again soon and dive into this ancestry thing. Definitely, she replied, feeling a flutter in her chest. As she stood to leave, Ryan's hand brushed against hers, a brief touch that sent sparks racing along her skin. You know, I feel like we're starting a journey that could change everything, he said, a seriousness settling over his expression. I have that feeling too, she admitted quietly. Standing at the cafe door, Emily looked back and caught Ryan drawing in his sketchbook. The tenderness in his movements struck something deep within her. Maybe this was the beginning of something special, something that went beyond the mystery of her father. With newfound hope swirling in her chest, she stepped out into the cool night air, the weight of the world momentarily lifted. The stars twinkled overhead, and the streets hummed with life. Everything felt both familiar and extraordinary, as if the universe had shifted into place. Ryan's laughter echoed in her mind, a reminder of the warmth they'd shared. She couldn't wait to see where this journey would lead them, if the strands of their lives were destined to intertwine in ways they couldn't yet imagine. With a sense of urgency, she walked home, her heart racing. The night wore on, but her thoughts flickered with possibility. The past, the present, and the future swirled around her, all anchored by two names, Dawson and Henderson. With every step, she felt a power rising within her. The journey was just beginning, and she was ready to embrace whatever revelations lay ahead. As Emily stepped into the bustling cafe on a chilly Tuesday morning, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee wrapped around her like a cozy blanket. She loved this place, the warmth, the chatter, the creative energy filling the air. But on this particular day, something felt different. Sitting at her favorite corner table, she opened her laptop and began typing, the familiar rhythm of her fingertips dancing over the keys. Just as she was lost in her writing, a soft chime from the door interrupted her focus. She looked up and her breath caught in her throat. A man walked in, tall and rugged, with dark hair that bounced with every step. There was something about his presence and inexplicable familiarity that tugged at her memory. He moved confidently to the counter, his laughter mingling with the baristas as they exchanged friendly banter. she whispered to herself, puzzled. She couldn't quite place him, yet his face felt like a long-lost photograph. As if reading her thoughts, he glanced over, his hazel eyes meeting hers for a brief moment. An electric jolt surged through her, and she quickly averted her gaze, feeling the heat crawl up her cheeks. Come on, Emily. Snap out of it, she thought, shaking her head as she turned back to her laptop. But curiosity gnawed at her. Who was he? Why did he feel like a ghost from her past? The man settled down in a chair a few tables away, pulling out a sketchbook. The way he held the pencil, the concentration on his face, it was all captivating. She found herself stealing glances, trying to catch a glimpse of his artwork, and more importantly, trying to understand the strange connection she felt. She scolded herself, attempting to drown out her racing thoughts, but her eyes kept drifting back to him. Each fleeting glance brought a familiar feeling, as if they had shared something, maybe even a life. Her heart raced. Just then he looked up again, catching her in the act. This time he smiled warmly, an inviting grin that made her stomach flutter. Hey, he called out, the sound of his voice rich and engaging. Hi, she replied, half embarrassed yet intrigued. You look familiar, he said, his brow furrowing slightly as he moved closer to her table. Emily, she replied, standing up to shake his hand. His grip was strong, his palm warm against hers, igniting a spark that felt both new and comforting. Nice to meet you, Emily, he said, settling into the adjacent chair. I'm trying to write, she admitted, a sense of vulnerability creeping in. Just sketching, he said, gesturing to the pages of his sketchbook. They began talking, easily slipping into conversation about art, writing, and the peculiarities of their hometown. The connection grew palpable, each word weaving an invisible thread between them. But beneath the surface, the thought spun in Emily's mind. Why did he look so familiar? Jake shifted his gaze to the side, as if searching for a memory buried deep. He asked suddenly, the question hanging in the air. I do, but not much, she said, feeling the weight of her past. Just my mom. Same here, he replied, his eyes holding a mix of empathy and understanding. I was raised by my mother, my dad. Emily nodded, sensing their shared history building a bridge between them. It's strange how family can feel so distant, she mused. Right, it's like we're all wandering around, hoping to connect the dots, Jake said thoughtfully before scratching his head. Mitchell, she replied, the name rolled off her tongue with a mixture of pride and sadness, her thoughts briefly drifting to the complicated relationship with her family. Mitchell, I've heard that name, Jake said, his brow furrowing again. The conversation shifted as they continued to bond over their shared experiences, but the unanswered question lingered on Emily's mind like an uninvited guest. Just as it began to fade, a sudden realization sparked her thoughts. Wait a second. Read, he said, narrowing his eyes slightly, and she could see the curiosity flicker in his expression. Her heart raced again, coaxing out the memory that had been hiding just below the surface. Jake leaned closer, intrigued. The gears in her mind turned wildly as she tried to remember. I'm not sure, but your last name feels familiar, like I've seen it before. Or maybe we're connected in more ways than we understand, he suggested, a teasing grin spreading across his face. Emily laughed, trying to push aside the absurdity of the thought, but something in her gut whispered it wasn't impossible. She mused, her curiosity piqued. Let's find out, Jake said, his excitement palpable. What if we dig into it? The idea felt absurd and thrilling all at once. I'd be down for that, she said, the possibility igniting a flame of anticipation. Jake beamed, leaning back as if plotting their next adventure. Just then, Emily's phone buzzed loudly on the table, snapping her back to reality. She glanced down at the screen to see it was her mother, a nagging sensation creeping back in. I should probably get going, she said reluctantly, feeling a mix of excitement and disappointment. Yeah, I should too, Jake replied, the brightness in his eyes dimming just a little. But let's definitely do this. Me too, she agreed, feeling a strange sense of urgency. As they stood up, Jake's hand brushed against hers one last time, sending a jolt through her system. There was something electric about that touch, something that felt like destiny reaching out. Let's keep in touch, he said, a hint of hope in his voice. Really looking forward to it, she replied, momentarily lost in the depths of his eyes. As they said their goodbyes and parted ways, Emily stepped into the crisp evening air, her heart dancing with giddy anticipation. The path ahead felt uncharted, a mix of excitement and anxiety swirling in her chest. Once home, she couldn't shake the thoughts racing through her mind. Who was Jake Reed? Did they really share a connection? As she sat down at her laptop, her heart thrummed against her ribcage. Okay, let's see what's out there, she whispered to herself, her fingers flying over the keys as she plunged into a world of ancestry sites, old records, and family trees. Every document she scrolled through felt like a piece of a larger puzzle. Names, dates, and places flooded her screen, drawing her deeper into the rabbit hole. Hours slipped by as she hunched over the desk, hardly noticing the fading light outside. And then she stumbled upon something, a family listing containing her father's name. Wait a second, she murmured, her heart racing again. She clicked deep into the records, skimming through names she had never seen before. But as she did, another name caught her eye, sending a shockwave through her. Read, she read aloud, her heart pounding. Was it possible? She quickly clicked through, parsing through connections until she found a familial link. Jake's family intertwined with hers somehow. The revelation sent chills down her spine. It wasn't absurd after all. They were connected, distant cousins, perhaps, but still connected. Her mind raced. How would Jake react to this discovery? Excitement intermingled with apprehension as she printed out the information, her thoughts swirling with anticipation. "Okay, Emily, you need to tell him," she said to herself, her heart thrumming wildly. Just then, a text buzzed on her phone. It was Jake. "Hey, are we still on for our family adventure?" Emily's heart raced as she took a breath, fingers hovering over the keyboard as she prepared to reveal her discovery. "Hey Jake, so funny you texted." She hit send, watching the screen, waiting for the dots to appear as he typed back. He replied almost immediately, his eagerness palpable even through the screen. "Do you remember when we talked about family names? Your last name, it's connected to mine." The response was quick, excitement crackling through the air as she read his reply. "No way. Are you serious?" Emily could hardly contain her excitement. "Yes. I found records linking us. Let's do it, I am so in," Jake texted back, and she could almost hear the enthusiasm in his voice. With a gleeful heart, Emily couldn't help but smile at the thought of their adventure together. Days blurred into one another as they exchanged messages, sharing their findings and planning their next meetup. Each text felt like a stepping stone, leading them closer to unraveling a history that bound them together. Finally, on a bright Saturday morning, they agreed to meet once more, this time armed with information, family trees, and that familiar spark of connection. As she walked into the cafe, the anticipation thrummed in her veins, each step echoing with potential. Jake was already there, his sketchbook open on the table, but when he saw her, he instantly stood up, face lighting up like 1,000 suns. "Hey," he exclaimed, and for a moment, all her nerves melted away. Emily asked, an exhilarated grin spreading across her face. "Born ready," Jake replied, pulling out a couple of papers from his bag. They spent the morning diving deep into the complexities of their families, sharing laughter and discoveries, uncovering roots that intertwined in ways they never imagined. Each revelation felt like a bond tightening between them, and with each laugh, Emily felt not just a sense of connection to her past, but something blooming between them. As the sun cast warm rays through the cafe windows, Emily realized this had become more than just a journey to discover family ties. It was a path toward understanding herself, and in turn, Jake was becoming more than just a name. He was a companion on this expedition of the heart. With each revelation, they unearthed pieces of a less-than-perfect family history, but they did it together, and somehow that made all the difference. Hours flew by until the cafe began to close their doors, leaving them lost in conversation. "Okay, this might sound crazy," Ryan said, leaning forward, his hazel eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. "What if we do this together, create our own family tree?" Emily's heart raced at the suggestion. She felt a wave of hope washing over her. Maybe they wouldn't just connect with their pasts, but might also forge their own path forward, hand in hand, as they navigated this journey side by side. The sun set outside, casting a warm glow as they left the cafe, the night sky twinkling above them. And in that moment, Emily felt a sense of belonging that had long eluded her, a connection that was woven tightly with both family and newfound friendship. The adventure was just beginning, and for the first time in a long while, she couldn't wait to see what awaited them on the journey ahead. As the warm sunlight poured through the cafe windows, Sarah sat in her usual spot, fingers tapping at her laptop as she worked on her latest project. The world outside hummed with life, but her mind was locked in a battle with words, crafting sentences that felt just out of reach. Suddenly, the door swung open, drawing her attention with a soft chime. A man walked in, his silhouette framed by the bright light behind him. He moved with a casual confidence, his tousled hair falling perfectly into place. But it wasn't just his appearance that caught her eye, there was something hauntingly familiar about him. She thought, squinting as her memory tried to stitch together that face. There was a flicker of recognition, like a half-remembered dream making her pulse quicken. He approached the counter, flashing a quick smile at the barista, and Sarah couldn't help but lean slightly to get a better view. She watched him order, the way he gestured with his hands, accentuating his words. It was so captivating, almost magnetic. Just then he turned slightly and their eyes met. In that instant, time seemed to slow. It was as though the universe had arranged for them to share this moment, the air around them crackling with tension. Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine and quickly looked away, her heart racing. Why did he feel so familiar? "Okay, get a grip," she muttered to herself, shaking her head as if that would clear her thoughts. She turned back to her laptop, but her mind was elsewhere. Should she approach him? Was it weird to just strike up a conversation, considering how she felt? Before she could decide, he walked toward her with purposeful strides, his eyes still locked on her. "Excuse me," he said, his voice smooth and warm. Sarah's breath caught for a moment. She stammered, trying to keep her composure. He chuckled, the sound rich and inviting. "I'm Nathan." "Sarah," she replied, feeling a light flutter in her chest. "I'm just visiting town," he said, sitting down at the table right next to hers. "I grew up here but moved away a long time ago." Maybe, she said, trying to hide her intrigue, but as she looked deeper into his eyes, she felt as if she was looking into a mirror reflecting pieces of herself. She asked, genuinely curious, just exploring old memories. It's funny how a place can feel both foreign and familiar at the same time, he replied, his voice thoughtful. I know that feeling all too well, Sarah said, a hint of nostalgia creeping into her tone. I've been working on rediscovering my roots myself. Nathan leaned in, his expression open and engaged. Taking a breath, Sarah decided to share. My grandmother passed away last year, and ever since then I've been digging into our family history. That's fascinating, Nathan said, a smile creeping back onto his face. I've always been curious about my roots too. The connection deepened between them, each word a thread woven into a tapestry of shared experiences. They continued to chat, diving into their respective stories, but still, Sarah felt that nagging sense of familiarity, like there was more to uncover. She asked suddenly, unable to hide her curiosity. Reynolds, Nathan replied, his tone brightening. Mitchell, she said, a soft smile tugging at her lips. Nathan furrowed his brow, his smile fading slightly. Mitchell, there's something about that name. The moment hung in the air, a thread of tension connecting them. Really, no, I swear, he said, leaning closer, his tone serious. I remember a family from my past, an old friend's family. Her heart raced. Could it be? She pressed. Reynolds, he replied, glancing around the cafe as if trying to jog his memory. Maybe, Sarah said, intrigued. Suddenly, the cafe door swung open again, and a burst of cold air rushed in. Sarah shivered slightly, pulling her cardigan tighter around her. Nathan asked, noticing her sudden chill. There's a cozy diner nearby. Pie sounds amazing, she replied, her enthusiasm ignited. As they exited the cafe, the world outside felt different. The sun was dipping lower in the sky, casting an orange glow over the streets. Every step they took toward the diner felt electrifying, the air thick with unspoken possibilities. Once settled in a booth at the diner, the smell of fresh pancakes and the sizzling of bacon filled the air. Nathan's laughter rang like music as they shared stories, delving deeper into their pasts. He asked, taking a sip of his coffee. Not really, Sarah admitted. Just my mom and me. That must be tough, he replied, a note of sympathy in his voice. Yeah, Sarah nodded, a hint of sadness creeping in. But I think that's why I obsess over family trees. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, but with every word, every laugh, the recognition flickered in the back of her mind. What was it that connected them? It gnawed at her, making her restless. She asked suddenly, citing a thought that had been latent in her mind. Nathan leaned back thoughtfully. Absolutely. I think last names carry stories, legacies. Sarah suggested, her excitement growing. Nathan replied, a glimmer lighting his eyes. As they continued to talk, Sarah felt a warmth enveloping her. There was an electricity in the air, a growing bond that felt not just comfortable but transformative. Nathan proposed, his tone turning a little more serious. She exclaimed, her heart racing again. This was what she wanted, someone to share this journey with, someone who understood. Okay, so we should exchange numbers and start this adventure together, Nathan said, excitement bubbling in his voice. They pulled out their phones, and as Sarah tapped his number into her contacts, she glanced at Nathan. There was a spark in his eyes that mirrored her own anticipation. Looks like we're starting a journey, Sarah, he said, that same lazy grin making her heart flutter. Suddenly, the waiter approached, setting down a slice of pie in front of her. It looked divine, golden crust, steaming filling, and whipped cream perched on top. Talk about timing, she said, grinning even wider. They shared the pie, punctuated with laughter, but deep inside, Sarah couldn't shake that stirring feeling of familiarity. Nathan asked, eyebrow raised as he watched her. I don't know why, but you feel like someone I've known forever, she admitted, her voice softening. He looked at her intently, the moment stretching between them. Maybe we were supposed to meet, he said, sincerity etched on his face. Suddenly, the atmosphere shifted. There was a quiet intensity, a gravity that pulled them closer. Her heart raced, and without thinking, she lined in. All right, Nathan, let's uncover this history together. Together, he echoed, his tone resolute. The air crackled around them, charged with the thrill of discovery. They finished their pie and exchanged more stories, losing track of time. Sarah felt lighter, as if the weight of unanswered questions began to lift. As they wrapped up and stepped outside, the cold air hit them again. They stood close, sharing warmth as they murmured about their next steps. The prospect of digging into their roots felt like standing on the edge of an exhilarating cliff, ready to leap into the unknown. Sarah, Nathan said softly, breaking her thoughts. Let's meet again tomorrow. Yes, let's do it, she replied, her excitement bubbling. With a final exchange of warmth and a lingering glance, they parted ways. But as Sarah walked home that night, she felt a deep sense of connection growing between them, something magnetic and profound that hinted at the adventures to come. Later that evening, while she flipped through old family albums in her living room, her phone buzzed with a message from Nathan. Can't stop thinking about today. I have a good feeling about this journey. Let's make some discoveries. Compass, she grinned, typing back enthusiastically, me too. As she settled into her world of family histories and photographs, that electric feeling lingered in the air. She knew they were about to embark on a journey that would knit their lives together in ways they couldn't yet imagine. With each tick of the clock, time felt like it was racing forward, just as their lives were about to intertwine, and she couldn't wait to see where this adventure would take them. The next day came, filled with bright anticipation. With every second, the thrill of discovery pulled her forward, ready to unravel the stories waiting to be told. Sarah felt alive with purpose, armed with the belief that something extraordinary awaited them both, something that would forever change the fabric of their lives. And in that certainty, she smiled, ready to take on whatever challenges this journey would throw her way. All of it bound by a shared last name and a newfound friendship. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Mia hurried into her favorite coffee shop, the gentle chime of the bell above the door announcing her arrival. The comforting aroma of roasted coffee beans flooded her senses, and for a moment the chaos of the outside world faded into the background. She loved this place. It felt like a second home, a sanctuary away from her busy life. Mia settled into her usual corner table, opening her laptop to dive into some work. She was focused, fingers dancing over the keyboard, lost in her thoughts when the door swung open again. It was a man with dark, tousled hair, casually dressed in a denim jacket and a crisp white tee. She glanced up, intending just to be polite, but then something struck her. He looked familiar. As he stepped inside and scanned the room, their eyes met for just a heartbeat, and her breath caught. There was something about the way he carried himself, the way his smile stretched across his face. Who was he? Get a grip, Mia, she muttered under her breath, shaking her head slightly to clear it, but she couldn't shake off the feeling. Was it just that he seemed like someone she knew, or was there more to it? She tried to return to her work, but her gaze kept flicking back to him as he ordered his coffee. The barista laughed at something he said, the warm exchange drawing her attention like a moth to a flame. Then he turned and started walking toward her. Her heart raced. Thoughts buzzed through her mind as he approached, a friendly smile lighting up his face. Hi, he said, leaning against the table, his eyes bright and curious. I have to ask, do I know you? Mia's stomach flipped. Well, I get that a lot, she stammered, her pulse quickening. Jake, he replied, extending a hand. It's my go-to spot for writing, she said, feeling a sudden rush of confidence. She offered a playful smile to ease her nerves. I totally understand. I'm just back in town for a bit, reminiscing about my childhood, he said, glancing around. As they chatted, Mia felt an odd mix of excitement and apprehension. She wondered, as they shared stories about their lives, she found herself captivated by how effortlessly he told his tales. Jake asked suddenly, his eyes glinting with curiosity. Just my mom, she replied. We've had a rocky relationship since my dad left when I was a kid. Yeah, I get that. My family has some secrets too, he said, a hint of sadness threading through his words. Mitchell, she replied without hesitation. But as soon as she said it, she felt a jolt. Jake echoed, eyes widening. Why? She asked, her heart racing. He paused, running a hand through his hair as he searched for the right words. Actually, I do. My best friend growing up was a Mitchell. Mia's eyes sparkled with intrigue. Ryan Mitchell. A rush of emotion swept through her. She exclaimed, excitement bubbling over. I haven't met him, but I've seen pictures, and my mom's talked about him a lot. Jake leaned back, clearly surprised. This is wild, Mia couldn't contain her enthusiasm. Just then, the cafe door swung open again, and a gust of wind swept through, making Mia shiver. She pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders. She suggested, feeling the chill in the air. Absolutely. There's a diner down the street that serves the best pie, he said, a playful grin on his face. Pie, Mia replied, her excitement bubbling over as they left the cafe together. As they strolled down the street, the evening air felt charged, filled with the potential of new discoveries. The city lights twinkled like stars, reflecting the growing anticipation between them. She marveled at how quickly they clicked, two strangers now weaving layers of shared histories. Jake said suddenly, stopping in his tracks. She laughed, the idea both absurd and thrilling. Cousins, Jake replied, nudging her playfully. Inside the diner, they found a booth and quickly swung into conversation, sharing more about their families. Each revelation felt like peeling away layers, revealing who they were. Mia felt a warmth blooming in her chest as Jake talked about his own family dynamics. I haven't been back here long, but I'm thinking about reconnecting with my roots too, he confessed. As they chatted, Mia felt a deeper connection forming, an unspoken understanding that transcended the words they exchanged. The clatter of dishes and laughter washed over them like a comforting blanket. They ordered, and soon a plate piled high with pie appeared in front of them, the rich aroma tempting their senses. They dug in, and with each bite, they exchanged bites of their lives, sharing dreams, fears, and stories like they'd known each other for years. I think it's wild that we met like this, Mia said between bites, her heart racing. Seriously, Jake laughed, leaning back in his seat. As they bantered, Mia couldn't shake the feeling of familiarity that enveloped her. With each story they shared, it was as if threads of their lives were weaving tightly together, an intricate tapestry of connection. Okay, so let's say we really are cousins, Jake proposed, a mischievous glint in his eye. What if we sorted through our family trees together? That sounds like an adventure, Mia replied, her excitement bubbling over. With their plans set, they finished the last of the pie, feeling bloated yet happy. Laughter erupted between them, drawing stares from nearby tables. They made light of the coincidence, weaving in and out of personal histories like a story that had yet to be fully told. Just then, Jake's phone buzzed on the table. He glanced at it, his expression shifting slightly. "I have to take this. It's my sister," he said apologetically. "Of course, go ahead," Mia replied, her heart skipping a beat as she watched him step outside. She stared into her coffee, her mind racing with the possibilities lying ahead. What if they really were family? What if they uncovered something that changed everything? Moments later, Jake returned, a thoughtful look on his face. "Sorry about that, just family stuff," he said, sliding back into their booth, "but it got me thinking." "Yeah," Mia said softly, her heart aching at her own thoughts. "But it's also a connection." "Exactly, I want to explore it," he said, determination in his voice. "Let's dig deeper into our history and see where it takes us." "Let's do it," she said, her excitement mingling with a rush of uncertainty, adrenaline coursing through her veins. As they chatted about their next steps, the diner filled with the sound of laughter and conversation around them. Yet Mia felt cocooned in their little world, the noise fading into the background. Each moment felt electric. She was keenly aware of every word, every shared glance. After they paid the bill, they stepped out into the cool night air, the sky now a canvas of shimmering stars. Mia felt as if the universe had conspired to bring them together, a sneaky twist of fate connecting the dots of their lives. Jake asked, his breath visible in the cold air. She suggested, her eyes gleaming with enthusiasm. He replied. As they walked, the conversation flowed seamlessly. They discussed everything: dreams, childhood memories, hopes for the future. Mia had never felt such an effortless bond with someone she had just met. Once inside the library, the musty smell of old books enveloped them. Mia felt a rush of nostalgia as she led Jake toward the genealogy section. Rows of books stood like sentinels, ready to unveil secrets that had long been buried. They settled into a small study area, spreading out old documents and family records she had gathered over the months. Each paper they turned revealed fascinating details: names, dates, places, all parts of a grand puzzle waiting to be solved. "Wow, this is incredible," Jake said, his eyes scanning the pages with intensity. Mia beamed, her heart racing. They flipped through records, excitement growing with each turn of the page. "Look at this, my grandfather's name is listed here," and Jake turned to look at her, anticipation palpable in the air. "My grandmother's maiden name," she breathed, shock coursing through her veins. Jake's eyes widened, he exclaimed. The implications of her discovery sent a jolt through both of them. Mia wondered, her heart racing as adrenaline surged. "Are we?" "It seems likely," Jake replied, a grin spreading across his face. "Mia, this is insane." The two of them dove into the records, barely able to contain their excitement. Hours slipped by as they sifted through documents, the thrill of discovery making time feel irrelevant. But beneath that electric anticipation lay something deeper, a connection that felt destined, something far beyond shared last names or family trees. They were entwining their stories together, two lives finding a way to interlace despite the randomness of the universe. As they continued their search, Mia's heart raced, excitement bubbling over at the thought of what they might uncover next. "Mia, this has been one of the best days I've had in a long time," Jake said suddenly, his eyes locking onto hers. "Thank you for being open to exploring this," she replied, her cheeks warming at the compliment. "Maybe it was meant to be," Jake said quietly. In that moment, an understanding passed between them, and it felt like their worlds had aligned. This was more than just curiosity about family. It was two souls connecting, dancing along the fringes of fate. The library began to close, lights dimming, and they reluctantly packed up their findings. As they stepped outside, the crisp air enveloped them, and the stars twinkled brightly above. She suggested playfully. He replied, his smile igniting a flutter in her stomach. As they walked to a nearby diner, Mia caught herself stealing glances at Jake. The warmth between them felt like a spark, igniting her excitement about the journey ahead. Not only had they uncovered family ties, but they'd woven something deeper between them, an unbreakable bond. Arriving at the diner, they exchanged stories, laughter bouncing between them like fireworks. Each new layer revealed the complexities of their histories and the tapestry of their shared lives, all while crafting a narrative of their own. As the night wore on, a sense of wonder enveloped them both. They were no longer just strangers who'd stumbled into one another. They were allies on a journey of discovery. When the evening finally came to close, Mia stepped out into the cool night air, her heart tight with anticipation. She felt alive, invigorated by the possibilities lying ahead. Jake turned to her, his expression earnest. "I can't wait for our next adventure, Mia." "Just the beginning," she echoed, confidence surging in her chest. With a lingering smile and unspoken connection, they both knew their lives were forever changed. They would not only uncover family roots together, but they would also forge a new path, one filled with laughter, friendship, and the kind of bond that could weather any storm. And in that moment, beneath the glimmering stars, Mia felt the weight of the world lift off her shoulders, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing she wouldn't be facing it alone. The bell above the cafe door jingled, and Emma looked up from her laptop. A man walked in, his presence commanding as he crossed the threshold. There was something about him, a flicker of recognition that sent her heart racing. She couldn't quite place where she had seen him before, but her gut instinct told her she was connected to him somehow. As he approached the counter, she noted the way he ran a hand through his tousled hair and flashed an easy smile at the barista. Those hazel eyes seemed to hold laughter, and for a moment she felt a stirring of familiarity. She thought, leaning back in her chair. She tried to shake it off, but the whisper of recognition nagged at her. She dismissed her thoughts and returned to her writing, but every now and then she glanced up, watching as he ordered his drink. She was about to dive back into her work when her heart skipped a beat. He turned around and their eyes met again. A spark ignited between them, palpable and electric. "Hi there," he said, moving toward her table. "I couldn't help but notice you look really familiar." Emma's breath caught in her throat. I don't think so," she managed to say, feeling a rush of nervous energy flood her senses. "Nice to meet you, Emma. I'm Luke," he replied, extending his hand. She noticed the strength in his grip, but also the gentleness with which he shook her hand. He asked, settling into the seat across from her, an inviting smile on his face. "Just working on a project," she said, gesturing to her laptop. "It's my favorite place to write. Just back in town for a bit." "Thought I'd grab some coffee and catch up with my old haunts," he said, a hint of nostalgia in his voice. "Definitely," Emma replied, her excitement mounting. As they talked, Emma felt herself loosening up, the tension melting away like ice on a warm day. They shared banter about their favorite spots in town, and before long she found herself completely absorbed in his warmth and charisma. "Is your name really Emma?" He teased, his eyes sparkling with mischief. She laughed, feeling a connection growing between them, but even as they bantered, that nagging feeling of familiarity gnawed at the back of her mind. Who was he? They moved on to family discussions, both sharing snippets of their lives' conversations about their childhoods and family backgrounds. Luke asked. "Just my mom," Emma said, her voice quieter now. "My dad left when I was young, and it's been complicated." "That sounds rough," Luke said, his gaze turning soft with empathy. "I get it. I can imagine," she replied, intrigued. She hesitated, the familiar feeling coming back with a rush. Luke paused, his expression shifting slightly. "Wait, Mitchell," her heart raced. He exclaimed, leaning closer, excitement dancing in his eyes. "Ryan Mitchell, we lost touch after I moved away." Emma echoed, excitement bubbling within her. "That's my uncle." The world around them began to melt away as they processed the revelation. The connection felt surreal, a thread woven between their lives that neither of them had anticipated. Luke laughed, disbelief hanging in the air. "So this makes us cousins," Emma replied, her heart racing with the possibilities. "Totally crazy," Luke said, grinning at her. "We need to figure this out," she said excitedly. "I've been wanting to dive deeper into my family's past for ages." They continued their conversation, the tension transforming into a rhythm of comfortable familiarity. Emma felt like she had known Luke forever. Luke stood up, glancing over at the cafe door where the light streamed in. "Hey, how about we get out of here and go somewhere warmer?" Emma said, feeling a rush of anticipation. It felt like a mini adventure, one that sprung from this unexpected connection. They walked down the street together, the evening air invigorating as they talked endlessly. The sun dipped lower, casting a warm golden hue that danced across their faces. As they arrived at the diner, the retro neon sign brightened up the sidewalk. Once seated in a cozy booth, they continued to share stories, laughter punctuating their interactions as they delved deeper into the roots of their families and their unexpectedly intertwined lives. Luke asked, curiosity etched across his features. "Not much, just that he's always been this legendary figure in our family," she said, her eyes wide with excitement. "I can imagine he had some wild stories," Luke replied, a knowing smile on his face. "He was always the adventurous type." "You're both awesome in your own ways," Emma said, her heart warming at the thought of two people from different backgrounds coming together through family ties. As they waited for their food, Luke leaned in. Emma took a moment, her thoughts swirling. "I guess I want to feel connected. I'm tired of feeling like I don't know where I come from." "Absolutely," Luke agreed, his expression thoughtful. "I think it really shapes who we are." Just then their food arrived. The warm plates of coffee and pie filled the air with the comforting sense of home. They dug in, savoring every bite as they continued their conversation. Luke asked, wiping a bit of whipped cream from his lips. "For Thanksgiving, we always have this tradition of going around the table and sharing what we're thankful for. It sounds cliché, but hearing everyone's gratitude feels grounding," Emma shared. "I love that," he said, his gaze warm. They shared more stories, their laughter echoing in the diner. Emma felt a sense of ease she hadn't experienced in a long time. Each word felt like a building block, bridging her past with a future that suddenly felt less isolating. As the evening unfolded, Emma found herself lingering on Luke's every word. There was a spark between them, something intriguing that skimmed the surface while hinting at deeper currents beneath. It was magnetic, pulling her closer with each shared story. After finishing their pies, they left the diner to the sound of their laughter trailing behind them. The night air was cool, but the warmth of the moment lingered, wrapping around them like a soft blanket. "Tonight has been amazing," Emma said, her heart fluttering with excitement. Me neither, Luke replied, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. As they strolled down the street together, they stopped momentarily to look up at the stars shining brightly above them. You know, with everything that's happened, I can't help but think the universe has some wild plans for us, Luke said, his voice low and steady. I like that thought, Emma replied, feeling a surge of hope. Whatever happens next, I'm excited to see where this journey leads us. They exchanged smiles, the connection between them palpable. With every moment spent together, layers of their lives unfurled, revealing a landscape filled with shared stories and dreams yet to be realized. It was then that Emma felt a wave of emotion wash over her. She said softly, her heart racing. Me too, he said, stepping closer. Whatever this is, it feels special. As they prepared to part ways, his expression turned serious. So how about we meet again? Definitely, Emma replied, excitement bubbling in her chest. They exchanged numbers, and as Luke walked away into the fading night, Emma couldn't help but smile at the opportunity ahead. The universe had brought them together, igniting a spark of curiosity and connection that neither had anticipated. The days that followed were filled with eager anticipation as they communicated constantly, sharing more details about their families, teasing out stories that felt like puzzle pieces waiting to be connected. Together, they began to explore old records at the local library, tracing their family trees. Every revelation felt like a stepping stone, guiding them deeper into a web of relationships, secrets, and uncharted paths. One afternoon, while poring over old census documents, Emma suddenly found something astonishing. Luke, she exclaimed, her heart pounding. He rushed over, eyes wide as she pointed at a name. Look, this record shows Ryan's name listed right next to mine. They exchanged excited glances, the warmth of possibility radiating between them. This discovery fueled their journey, and they spent hours laughing, uncovering hidden stories that painted a vivid picture of their intertwined histories. The more they discovered, the stronger their bond grew. Luke was not just a distant cousin anymore. He had become a partner in exploration, a friend who shared her passion for understanding their origins. One evening, as they wrapped up their research, Emma realized how much she had come to care for him. She began cautiously, her heart pounding. I just want to say how grateful I am for this. Same here, he said, sincerity in his voice. You've made this journey so much more memorable. In that moment, something shifted between them, a fragile yet palpable tension hanging in the air. Emma felt a flutter in her chest, an exhilarating rush that made her heart race. Whatever happens next, I'm really glad we're doing this together, she whispered, her eyes searching his. Me too, Luke replied, stepping a bit closer. As they shared a lingering gaze, Emma felt the warmth blossoming between them, a spark that hinted at something more. The universe had led them to one another in a way that felt profound and meaningful. As time went on, their exploration continued, but so too did the rhythm of their budding relationship. They developed a connection that transcended simple family ties, an emotional bond filled with shared hopes, laughter, and dreams yet to be realized. One afternoon, while sitting in a park under the shade of a large oak tree, Luke took Emma's hand gently. You know, he said, locking eyes with her, this journey has shown me so much more than just family secrets. I've realized there's so much power in connections, both distant and close. Me too, Emma breathed, feeling a thrill as their hands intertwined. It was more than family, it was something deeper, something she never saw coming. The warmth of their mutual understanding enveloped them, drawing them closer as they shared stories and dreams, their laughter ringing in the air like a melody. But as their explorations progressed, Emma felt a flutter of uncertainty. What if their newfound connection as family complicates things? She couldn't help but wonder if they were crossing lines that were never meant to be crossed. She hesitated, her heart racing as the anxiety crept back in. Was she inviting complications into their relationship by embracing something so deep? One afternoon, as they continued their research in the library, she made up her mind to share her thoughts. She began, her voice steady but low. He looked at her for a moment, a frown etched across his face. I mean, what if our connection changes when we realize we're related? It's different, and I don't want that to hurt what we've built, she confessed. Luke took a breath, considering her words. I get what you're saying, but I think it's a special bond we should embrace. Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. Absolutely. We're family, but we're also partners in discovering who we are. That's worth celebrating, he said, flashing a warm smile. Emma's heart lifted, and in that moment she knew they had something extraordinary. It was a connection that felt far beyond ordinary family ties. From that day forward, they embraced their unique relationship, digging deeper into their families while exploring how the stories intertwined. Each discovery brought them closer, revealing layers of connection built on trust, understanding, and shared experiences. As weeks turned into months, it became more apparent that their bond transcended not just family ties, but blossomed into something romantic. Every touch lingered, every look sparked an electricity that sent tingles down her spine. One evening, while sitting together, Emma felt a swell of emotion build inside her. Luke's laughter filled her heart, and she couldn't hold back any longer. She asked, her voice barely above a whisper, a nervous flutter dancing in her stomach. Of course. You know, I'm all ears, he replied, moving closer, his intense gaze locked onto hers. I think I'm falling for you, she confessed, vulnerability threading through her words. Luke's expression softened, a smile breaking across his face. I've been feeling the same way. A wave of relief washed over her, and before she knew it, they were leaning in, their lips meeting in a gentle kiss. It was sweet, tender, a promise of what was to come, all while celebrating the bond they had built through the chaos of life. As they pulled back, breathless and wide-eyed, Emma couldn't help but feel a profound sense of connection. They were embarking on a journey like no other one, filled not just with family secrets, but love, laughter, and the excitement of discovering what lay ahead for them both. With hearts full of hope, they knew they would keep exploring both their family histories and the connection that had brought them together. Together, they could face anything, family complications and all. And in that moment, under the vast night sky filled with stars that seemed to shimmer just for them, Emma realized that sometimes life takes unexpected turns, leading you to the people who are meant to be part of your story. The cafe was a cozy haven, filled with the sound of laughter and the rich aroma of coffee muffins. As Maya sipped her cappuccino, she scanned the room, her mind drifting. That's when she spotted him, a man sitting at the corner table, sketching intently in a well-worn notebook. His dark hair fell just above his piercing blue eyes, which seemed to concentrate fiercely on the page. At first glance, he looked completely ordinary, but there was something about him that felt bizarrely familiar. Maya squinted, trying to cut through the haze of memory. She wondered. Just then, he looked up, and their eyes connected. For a moment, the world around them blurred, and all she saw was him. An electric jolt shot through her. He looked at her with the same intrigue, a look that suggested they shared an unspoken past. "Hi there," he said, smiling warmly, his voice deep and engaging. "Hey," she replied, trying to mask her sudden racing heart. His brow furrowed slightly, the wheels turning in his head. "You look familiar." "Born and raised," she admitted, feeling the tension ease a little. Maybe she was just imagining things. They exchanged pleasantries, and as they spoke, Maya found it easier to connect with him. The way he described his drawings, his passions, felt almost intimate, connecting through art, through words, cementing a bond that felt eerily like something they had shared before. He asked, tilting his head slightly. "Sure," she replied, gesturing to the seat across from her. As he settled in, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she was drawn to him for more than just a fleeting moment. Her eyes glanced down at the open notebook on the table. It was filled with intricate sketches, beautiful and haunting in equal measure. They spoke as if they had known each other for years, sharing stories about college and dreams deferred. "Wait a minute," she blurted out suddenly. "Reed," he said, looking a bit puzzled by her question. Her mind raced as a chill ran down her spine. "Reed, that sounds so familiar. I think I know a Reed." The moment stretched between them, and then it hit her like a tidal wave. "Oh my God," she gasped. "Reed," he confirmed, a hint of confusion dancing in his eyes. Her heart raced. "Reed, my mother's maiden name is Reed, are we?" He leaned in, his eyes lighting up with intrigue. "I didn't know there were Reeds around here. My family hails from a small town nearby." She asked, her heart pounding. "Not much, just my dad, really. He raised me alone after my mom passed away," he said quietly, looking down at the table, tracing a finger over the sketches. Maya absorbed his words, sensing an unspoken connection growing between them. "I'm sorry to hear that," she replied, sincere empathy filling her voice. "I lost my mom 3 years ago." He nodded, his expression softening. "That's rough." Their conversation deepened, and as they shared their stories and memories, Maya felt the familiar pang of longing settle within her. But just when the excitement began to bubble, a shadow of doubt crept in. "If we're related, we should definitely find out more. Family history can lead to some profound truths," she said, and he nodded. At that moment, the door swung open, letting in a gust of cold air, and it caught Maya off guard. She turned toward the entrance, watching as a woman in her 50s stepped inside, her hair flowing like silver threads against the backdrop of her navy coat. Something about her stopped Maya in her tracks. The woman paused, scanning the room, and for a heartbeat, their eyes met. Maya felt like she had seen this woman before. Her face evoked an image buried deep within her mind. She murmured instinctively, but the word hung in the air as doubt took root. Luke asked, breaking her concentration. "I think so," Maya said breathlessly, her voice barely a whisper. Luke suggested, tilting his head toward the woman, but before Maya could answer, the woman had turned away and headed for a table in the corner, her back to them. Maya jumped to her feet without thinking. Something compelled her to follow, a desperate urge to understand. Luke hurried after her, concern painting his features. "Maya, wait," but Maya couldn't hold back. She reached the woman's table just as she was settling in, and she took a deep breath. The woman's head snapped up, startled. "Yes," Maya exclaimed, her heart racing. "I'm Maya and Reed, of course," the woman interrupted, her eyes narrowing slightly. She said, excitement bubbling over. "I believe you might be related to my family, my mother. She often talked about the Reeds." Susan studied her intently, the air thick with tension. She said slowly, a spark of recognition flickering behind her eyes as she leaned back in her chair. "Molly Mitchell," Maya said, her voice steady. Susan's expression shifted suddenly and a wave of confusion washed over her features. Molly, she was my sister. I haven't seen her in years. Maya felt a mix of elation and anxiety. She passed away 3 years ago. The words hung heavily in the air. Susan's gaze softened, then hardened as if battling a storm of emotions. Sorry to hear that, she said, her voice barely above a whisper, but you shouldn't have come to find me. Maya asked, confusion flooding her mind. Before Susan could respond, Luke joined them, his brows furrowed in concern. Maya's my niece, Susan said flatly, a coldness creeping into her tone. Luke glanced at Maya, bewilderment creeping onto his face. He repeated, trying to process the gravity of the moment. Susan's expression hardened, and Maya detected a hint of fear behind her eyes. Maya, let's go, Luke urged gently, sensing the tension in the air. No, I need to understand, Maya insisted, her voice steady even as her pulse quickened. Susan hesitated, her thin lips pressing together as if weighing her next words carefully. Some truths are better left unspoken. Maya's heart was racing, her mind buzzing with questions as she searched Susan's eyes for answers. What shadows? Just then the cafe door swung open again, and in walked another figure, a tall man with short, dark hair and a confident stride. Maya gasped as she recognized him instantly. She called out, her voice tinged with disbelief and shock. The familiar face of her long-lost uncle approached, his expression an intricate mix of surprise and joy. Maya, he exclaimed, eyes lighting up as he rushed toward her. In that moment, the world blurred around them, her pounding heart drowning out the cafe's sounds. Susan said, eyes darting nervously between the two of them. Yeah, my niece, I've been looking for you, Ryan said, grabbing her shoulders as if he couldn't believe she was really there. But before they could embrace, Susan's voice cut through the air like a knife. No, this isn't right, she insisted, stepping between them. Ryan's brows knitted in confusion, glancing back and forth between Susan and Maya. She said, desperation creeping into her tone. Maya stood frozen, clenching her fists. Some things in our family are better left hidden, Susan said, her voice trembling slightly. Suddenly, Maya felt a wave of panic wash over her. You're scaring me. I came here looking for answers, and now I feel more lost than ever. Ryan stepped back, clearly as bewildered as she was. What do you mean? If we're family, we should talk about this. Susan turned to him, her expression a mix of anger and fear. You don't understand. This isn't just about family. It's about everything we thought we knew. Maya's heart raced as adrenaline coursed through her veins. Just tell us, please. And just like that, as if time stood still, Susan took a deep breath, her expression shifting from defiance to caution. Maya felt a shiver run down her spine, anticipation thrumming in the air around them. She urged, searching their faces for clarity. Ryan reached for her arm, his grip firm yet reassuring. He said, determination gleaming in his eyes. Yes, Maya replied, her heart pounding as she prepared to confront whatever lay ahead. In that moment, Susan opened her mouth to speak, the weight of the past hanging heavy in the air. And as those words hung in the balance, the cafe felt like it was closing in, the flickering lights casting shadows across their faces, ready to unveil secrets that had long been buried.